Hi, welcome to the 4th episode of Homeschool Handicraft. I'm Kendra and this is
Tori.
Can you guess what we might be making today? Yeah, felt sleep masks. They're so cute. I volunteer with our local 4-H group in the So Fabulous group, and one of our leaders is Lily. She's 13 years old in 8th grade, and this summer, since we couldn't meet because of coronavirus, we were making kits to send out to everyone. They could come pick them up and then send me pictures of them completed. So Lily made this craft, and so we are highlighting it today. I'm going to show you how to make it and the supply list and everything you need. I really think these would be so much fun if you did a sleepover and you had all your girlfriends over and you could make these masks and then you could wear them that night. And it would be a fun little gift to go home with. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and give me just a minute. What? Oh, yes. Someone, Pinky, has her own sleep mask that Tori made for her. You could use the pattern that's included on the blog post, and you could shrink it down in your copier and make it appropriate for a stuffed animal. It'd probably be too big for a Barbie doll, but it would probably work for a stuffed animal. Anyway, show them Pinky again one more time. All right. Thanks, we'll see you in a minute. Hi, so let's get started. The first thing you're gonna need is your pattern. So I printed this out on cardstock. It's a little bit heavier, so it's easier to trace around. You'll also need a piece of felt for your mask, some black embroidery floss for the eyelashes, some embroidery floss to go around the outside, a piece of elastic. This is that really soft hairband elastic. You can get it at Hobby Lobby in the sewing area where they have the ribbon on a spool, and they sell it on a spool. It's really soft and gentle, be nice on your face. Also, you'll need a pair of scissors, a marker to mark around your pattern, and an embroidery needle. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is take our piece of felt, we're going to lay our mask on it and trace around it. Alright, that looks pretty good. The next thing, hopefully if you have some felt that is thinner, you should be able to see through the felt. I don't know if you can tell. To mark the eyelashes. If not, you can take this pattern piece, put a piece of freezer paper over the top of it with the shiny side down, and you can trace this on the freezer paper, cut it out. Then you can actually iron that freezer paper onto your felt. Now you need to do it at a low heat because this cheap felt is actually made of plastic, and so if you iron it, it can melt. So you have to be real careful. But you can mark on the freezer paper, cut it out, iron it very carefully on top of this piece of felt just until it sticks to it, and then you can sew right over the lines of the freezer paper and then peel it right off. But in this case, I'll show you, mine is pretty see-through. So I'm just going to lay this on top of this here. And I'm going to mark my eyelashes. Here's my other eyelash. There we go. Now, the hardest part is done. So we'll cut this out. I would suggest cutting right inside the line because you don't want this to show. Cut right inside your marker line. You can always trim it off later if you need to. almost done. Okay. Well, I've got a few spots. I'll show you my little trick for clearing those up. I have these little embroidery scissors. They've kind of got a curve to them. I love these scissors. So you could actually just kind of trim this off with embroidery scissors, and it'll just, you can cut just the tiniest little bit away. Works really good in case you ever mess up. It's harder to use a big pair of scissors to do the trimming because you might accidentally cut into them. Oh, there's a little bit right here too. Well, that looks pretty good. So the next thing we're going to do is get our piece of thread. And this is my embroidery thread. And we're going to, you should have about 50 inches of it, but if you've got just a long piece like I do, you could just get about 25 inches. Cut it off. We're only going to use I'm only going to use 3 pieces. So each strand of embroidery thread has 6 little tiny strands of thread. So we'll divide this up carefully. Alright, got that divided up. So we've got 3 strands. Take our scissors and trim the edges. I don't know if you've watched my other videos, you know my trick on threading a needle. Squish it between your fingers and then push it through. Oh, didn't want to work that time. Squish it through. There we go. And now we'll tie a knot in this other end. There we go. And we're going to do a blanket stitch around the edge. Do any of you remember what a blanket stitch is? We're going to start over here on this corner. We're going to come up from behind, and that's going to hide our knot in the back. We're going to come back around and back through the same hole. There we go. And then we're going to go down the front. Down and back through our loop, and that's going to make our blanket stitch. From the front, down, through the loop, it's going to make our blanket stitch. We're just going to keep doing this all the way around our mask. Go down from the front, through our loop, and around. The most important part is you always come from the same side. So if you went down from the front, you always go down from the front. And that way your blanket stitch will look correct every time that you do it. So we're going to go ahead and continue this all the way around to the mask. If you run out of thread, just, when I run out of thread here in a minute, I'm sure I'm not going to make it around. I'll show you what to do, okay? Okay, I didn't even make it halfway around before I ran out of thread, so I'm going to show you how to stop a blanket stitch and start up a new one. So you're going to go ahead and go through like you're making a blanket stitch, but don't come back through your loop. You're going to need to leave it a little bit loose, like it. Go ahead and pull your needle off and leave enough so it would make a blanket stitch. So about that much. You're going to flip it onto the back side. Going to take your new piece of thread and you're going to just tie a knot right up close here. Get it as tight as you can without pulling it too tight from the front. There we go, and I'm going to go ahead and knot this again, just so it stays where it's supposed to. I also, when I'm doing these and I need my knot close down to the felt, I use the head of the needle to hold the knot right where I want it to go. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and trim this extra bit off. There we go. Thread our needle again. Squish it between our fingers, push the eye of the needle through there, and there we go. Then we're going to just come back around the front, stick our needle under here, and there we go. So you can see the knot on the back, and then we'll just keep on doing our blanket stitch down the front and through the loop, down the front and through the loop, and keep on going all the way around. Okay, we've come to the end, and I want to show you how to finish this off. So I've got one more stitch. I'm going to go in through the first hole we made. See, there's the original knot. We're going to make a regular blanket stitch, and then we're going to go ahead and pick up this stitch that's at an angle here. There we go. Now we're going to flip it around to the back, come underneath, and you're going to want to go through the felt a little bit, not all the way through the front, but just a little bit. Pull it through. We're going to tie a knot right here, and we'll be done with that part. I should have cut my thread a little bit longer. It's hard to make a knot if you got just a little bit of thread left. Alrighty, and I'm going to use my needle to make a knot close down to the felt. There we go. So now we've got that part finished. It's looking pretty cute. Now we'll need to take some of our black thread. I've got these are always fun to try to find the end. There it is. I would say probably, I pulled this out 2 times, which is about 24 inches or so. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to divide this into 2 sets of 3. 1, 2, 3. This can be kind of cranky, so just be gentle with it. Pull slowly, and it should come apart. There we go. We'll thread our needle. Well, maybe. There we go. And tie a knot in the end. Since this is so dark and it's going to show through, we'll want to trim this end pretty close so it doesn't show through too much on the other side. There we go. Now we're going to do a different kind of stitch on these eyelashes. This is called a stem stitch. So we're going to come up at one corner, so our knot is on the back, one corner of the eyelash. We're going to go forward, and before you get all the way down, there you go. Before you get all the way down, you're going to come up in the middle of this loop here. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to move forward a little bit, And before your stitch is all the way through, you're going to come up right where this other stitch ended. Right there. This is called a stem stitch. You're going to move forward before it comes all the way through. Come back up where your last stitch was. It kind of makes like a rope looking pattern, and it makes a really nice line that just looks a lot prettier than a running stitch or a back stitch. It just looks a little smoother because there's no, it just looks like a continual rope instead of an up, down, where you can maybe see holes through it, or it doesn't look so stark. Just a real pretty line that you can use for vines or outlines, or you can use it to, if you were doing cursive, like someone's name or something in cursive, it works really well for that too. We're going to continue to learn different hand stitches as we go through. Uh-oh, something happened here. There we go. So let's just keep doing this stitch all the way to the end. And then I'm going to show you how to do the eyelashes. The eyelashes will be a little bit easier because it's just going to be a simple up and down running stitch. If you made really long eyelashes, you could do this same stem stitch on them, but we made ours pretty short, so I think the running stitch will work just fine. Almost done. This one anyway. Alright. Then you just finish it off with one. So there we go. That is called a stem stitch. So now we're just going to come from the bottom here, and we're just going to come right back up, kind of underneath this stitch, to make the eyelash. And then we'll come up from underneath here and go down. And we'll just do this all along these eyelashes. Up and down and up and down. Just one more to go. There we go. Alrighty, and then you want to just tie a knot in the back and come over and finish this other one. And when you have them both done, I'll come back and show you how to put the elastic on. Okay, well, I have finished my mask, the embroidery part, so I'm going to take my elastic and put it around the back side, right around, right in the middle of these eyelashes. Show you the back. It's about how far it leaps over. So I'm going to take my needle and thread, I'm going to come up from the back, there we go, and then we're going to do a simple X here. We're going to come up from behind. Now, since this is going to be showing, you want it to look pretty, so do a good job. And then we're going to come back over here. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is a back stitch. I'm going to make a box around it, and this is just going to help hold this in place. So we're going to come up at the corner of our X and come down to this corner here. We're going to come up at this corner and down in this corner. We're going to come up here and down here, and one more time, up here and down here. So that looks pretty good. It's not going to let go. So now you're going to need to try the mask on your face and make sure that your elastic is going to be comfortable around your head. My suggestion is to put it on this side and maybe hold it or pin it and try it on and see if it's going to be too firm, if it's going to be too tight or too loose. And then we'll sew this other side on. So first I'm going to tie a knot here, hold it in place. There we go. And I actually like to tie my second knot a little further up. So I have 2 knots, and then I cut in between the 2, and then I've got my next knot ready to go. So take real precaution, be real careful, and lay this down. You don't want to accidentally get it twisted and sew it on. So make sure you have it straight and line it up on this side, and we're going to do the same thing that we did on the other side. We're going to make an X. So we're going to come up from the back side, and now that we've come up, let's do it from this side so we can make sure our X is pretty. There we go. Now we're going to make our X. And here. And back down here. And then we're going to make our back stitch around the edges. And then guess what? Then we're done. One last stitch. There we go. I'm going to tie our knot, clip it, and our mask is finished. If you make this, I would love to have your mom or you take a picture and post it on my page or tag me on Instagram at Homeschool Handicraft. I'd love to see what you make. See you next week.